we've got as a presenter our own Lily Birmingham, who's now experiencing her 50th year anniversary since arriving in the United States from Taiwan. And she's an experienced museum docent at the San Diego Museum of Art and a trainer there since 2013. She retired in 2011 and has also been on the board and an indispensable member of the San Diego Chinese Historical Museum since 2019. And as a discussant, we've got Linda De Benedetto, another experienced docent at the San Diego Museum of Art. And here at the Chinese Historical Museum, she's coordinated education programs, staff instruction, and school outreach programs, and the like. So at this point, I would like to introduce Lily, and we're anxious to hear about woodblocks. So we're waiting for, there we are.
Okay, thank you, Bob, for that kind introduction. I will talk about Chinese woodblock prints today. One of the globally significant inventions in history was printing, which enables the dissemination of knowledge and literacy. It also improves commerce and art appreciation. Chinese started with woodblock printing over 1,000 years ago. I attempt to highlight this part of the history all the way to modern day next. So the earliest prints were rubbings of stone or bronze carvings. It was invented in the early 2nd century, but they were not for large distribution, more for private use. And scholars believe that woodblock printing first appeared in China around the year 600. Because of the need to produce many Buddhist texts and Buddha images that inspired woodblock printing to start. Then instruction books in agriculture and medicine became available and many other items followed. In 762, the first commercially printed books were sold in the market of Chang'an, China. Within 20 years, printed receipts were available in the market, and paper money appeared in the 10th century. So they were all coming along. And the movable type printing was invented along the year 1040 by Bisheng. The technology was adopted and spread throughout Asia, the Middle East, and Europe. But woodblock print remained popular in China for centuries. Next. So we have a video to show you how woodblock print was created and spread. 2.5 minutes.
Delicate strokes, carved onto wood with ultimate precision. This is woodblock printing, an ancient printing technique that propelled human civilization. As Buddhism prevailed in China during the Tang Dynasty, there was a strong need to produce a large amount of Buddhist scriptures, and copying by hand couldn't meet the rising demand. Ancient Chinese craftsmen thus came up with a novel way to mass-produce printed works. Hence came the prototype of woodblock printing. Traditional woodblock printing can be divided into 4 major steps: writing, engraving, printing, and binding, with each step then subdivided into several procedures. It takes roughly 30 steps to produce a woodblock print. Carving lies at the center of woodblock printing, as this artist's step can make or break the final print. Characters and images are carved to produce raised areas or lines that will eventually apply ink to paper. It calls for a pair of skilled hands. A 5-meter scroll of the Buddhist scripture Diamond Sutra printed in 868, is the earliest dated printed book in the words of the British Library where it is stored. It is just one example of ancient works of art that not only tell the wisdoms of our predecessors, but also is a testimony to the pursuit of beauty by Chinese craftsmen throughout centuries. The invention of writing gave life to great thoughts, but it is the invention of printing that made knowledge a shareable fruit for all humankind. Knowledge, great thoughts.
Oh, thank you for that video, Muting. So we'll start with black and white printing. As the video pointed out, the oldest known dated printed book is the Diamond Sutra. And it's a scroll of 17.5 feet long, folded into a book. The date is actually based on the writing on the book. It reads, "Reverently made for universal free distribution by Wang Jie on behalf of his two parents." And the year was written in the Chinese way, Tang Xian Tong 9 年, converted to A68. Today, the scroll is housed at the British Library. Most of you know the oldest printed book in Europe is the Gutenberg Bible from 1450, and that came along almost 600 years later than this book. And the Huntington Library has a copy of this Gutenberg Bible. Traditional Chinese reads from the right to left, so the beginning of this book is the art. The art is Buddha Shakyamuni preaching to the elders at the monastery. Then the text starts. The Buddha is the most important person, so he's the biggest figure. And in those days, there was no depth perspective, so you see the floor tiles are the same size in the foreground and the background, and that's just how it was. This Diamond Sutra was originally discovered in 1900 by a monk in Dunhuang. It was one of the 40,000 scrolls and documents hidden in the cave of 1,000 Buddhas, which was a secret library sealed up around the year 1000 when the area was threatened by a neighboring kingdom. In 1907, British-Hungarian archaeologist Mark Orell Stein was on an expedition. When he heard about the secret library, he bribed the monastery people who were in charge of the cave and bought cheaply lots of documents, including this Diamond Sutra. He took them back to London, and that's why now it's in the British Library. Next. Here's another Buddhist sutra. It's a flower ornament sutra, or Hua Yan Jing. This copy was printed in 1085 as part of the Chinese Buddhist canon from the Song dynasty. It's the oldest book in the Huntington Library. The author was unknown. It's an accordion-style book that unfolds to a length of 31 feet. If you look, each page is almost our standard size, 11 by 8 by 11, almost our size. And you can see it's folded in the middle and then glued to the next page at the edges. And that creates this accordion-style book. And during this period, a total over 5,000 volumes were created for the great canon of Buddhism. And this is part of this canon. And after the Buddhist scriptures, storybooks became popular. Next. Here is Romance of the Western Chamber, or Xishangji. This is a very famous Chinese play from the 13th century, and it was written by Wang Shipu. It's probably China's most popular love comedy. It's a story between a poor young scholar and the daughter of a government official. And there's the involvement of the maid to help them. So you can see in the illustration, it shows the maid and the official's daughter. Notice the plants. Every leaf and flower petal was carved, and there are more lines on the tree trunk to show a little bit of a volume. So there was a lot of detail for the illustration. The play is considered an attack on feudal society and its moral standards. It promotes the longing for freedom of love and marriage. So people already wanted free love in the 13th century in China. So it's nothing new. The illustration was from a rare edition by a famous artist, Chen Hongshou, in the 17th century. And the cover was a different person, and that was common in those days. Next. Another famous novel, or actually play, Peony Pavilion, or Mudan Ting, The Return of Soul. So this book is a 1598 tragic comedy play by Tang Xianzu. It's a renowned as a masterpiece of Chinese literature and Chinese opera, Kunqu. It's a little different from the Peking opera, but usually the costumes, stories are similar. As shown in the illustration, the story starts with a young woman sleeping in the garden. She had a dream. Notice the illustration on upper left. It's a bubble coming from this girl sleeping and dreaming. So this bubble indication is similar to what we have in cartoons today. She falls in love with a young man whom she never met. The dream leads to her death from love sickness. Then her spirit returns to be resurrected by her lover. So the play celebrates for its lyrical beauty, psychological depth, and the exploration of love's power. This book was printed in 1617, and the covers were 4 members from the same family. It took a lot of time to carve this book, which is probably 3 times as long as the Romance of the Western Chamber. Next. Now we look at medicine book. See the illustration? There are the plants and their titles in the book help you identify them. This is the Compendium of Materia Medica, first published in 1590. It's called the Chinese 本草纲目. The original compiler, Li Shizhen, spent 27 years collecting over 1,800 medicinal plants. He sorted, classified, and illustrated over 1,100 plants with 11,000 prescriptions or disease treatment recipes. It's very useful for Chinese herbalists or Chinese doctors. He was not able to publish all the volumes during his lifetime, but his family did. And there are many different editions created in different eras. Right now, you can buy one from Amazon. And the print here is an 1885 edition. It's in the Nanjing Library. Next. To me, this paper currency is very important because once you have money, you really promote the commerce. So paper money appeared in the 10th century locally. And then the government from the Song Dynasty started their official paper money in 1023. The local money started in the Southwest. It was very popular, and that's why the government started the official money. And what's interesting is in the Marco Polo's book, he talked about he was really impressed by the city in Hangzhou. It was like a paradise. But what impressed him the most was the paper money. He couldn't believe the culture was so advanced that people could treat a printed paper as valuable as silver and gold. And what I want to show the picture is the middle is the coins. That's what they used. And for 1,000 coins, they tie to a string. And then the paper money actually is one string of coins. The one on the left, at the time they decided it was 770, but most of the time it's 1,000 coins as one this bill. On the right-hand side is the Yuan Dynasty. It has the woodblock and the actual print. This one is 2 strings, so it's equivalent to 2,000 coins. What's interesting is in the middle, you see 2 big, almost like circle. It's an illustration of 2 strings. It helps the illiterate people who knows what value of this, because they had 1 string or 2 strings or 5 strings. It's different numbers, and you want to know how many strings your money is worth. Next. So now we move on to colors. is initially they were hand-colored prints. They figured out to do the black and white print easily, but to get colors, it's a different story. This one is from the 10th century, and this is illustration from chapter 25 of the Lotus Sutra. And it tells the story. The scenario says, let's say you are on a ship in the ocean. By the way, the right side is the first picture because the Chinese reads from the right to the left. A black storm comes with strong wind and the boat is about to sink. If you, the only person, pray to Guanyin, the Bodhisattva of mercy, as you see on the left, your whole ship will be saved. So the art is simple and to the point. And you notice there are different colors, red, brown, and skin color. They were all hand painted. So it's a cute illustration. I think no wonder people really would love the illustration for the stories. Next. So there are more books about instruction books. So this is instruction books for farming and weaving. So we look at farming first. Again, start from the right. The picture shows a person is plowing using a tiller with an water buffalo. And then on the left is after the ground is prepared, you spread the seeds in this field. So notice the water in the field, and then there are small trails dividing the water field because rice grows in a semi-aquatic region. So you need to understand you need to fill with water for this rice field. So the illustration really helps you, and the color adds clarity. Unfortunately, the color faded because of time and maybe it was exposed to light, but you can appreciate how much detail an illustration book provides. Let's go to next. It's the same book, but it's about weaving. On the right-hand side, you see a lady on the very right is making threads. So between the illustration and the text instruction, it tells you to make silk threads first. You make it from cocoons by boiling cocoons to loosen fibers and winding them into a single filament, and then twisting multiple filaments into thicker threads. So there's a lot of instructions there. The left side shows you you use equipment, a loom, to weave fabric. To see what it looks like in the illustration really help people understand and how the thing works. And by the way, this is from the Getty Research Institute, and it's hand-colored. Next. We're coming back to the Romance of the Western Chamber because it was a very popular story. In here, we show you single sheet. This is more like a poster you put on the wall as a decoration and also for a conversation piece. And this type of print is called a Suzhou print. It was popular in the 18th century. Both are similar, and they're telling the same story. And you see there are multiple vignettes. On the right, I guess on the lower right, you see they're banded there because the girl is taking refuge in a Buddhist monastery. And these bandits are surrounding the monastery, trying to force her into marriage. And there are multiple vignettes in the art. So there are different people discussing resolutions to defeat the bandits. And there's a backdrop of mountains. So both are similar, but they're definitely different art, different prints. And this type of prints were popular in those days. However, most people used for a while and then discarded, so not many are in the collection now. We have the left one from the Metropolitan Museum and the right one from the Harvard Museum. This is pretty big poster. It's about 40 inches tall, 20 inches wide, and it's pretty impressive when you put on the wall. And, next. We have additional this hand colored prints. This is if you look at the art, beautiful colors, and there's a elegant tree with five children. There are five children, four boys, one girl, and then a young woman. And the colors are brilliant, beautiful. This is also a poster type of print. And this actually has an auspicious symbolism there because the tree is a jubilee tree. In Chinese, it's called a 枣子树. 早 is harmonium with early. 子 is harmonium with sun. So this evokes the phrase, may you have a noble son, 顺. In Chinese phrase is 早生贵子. So this would have been popular for giving to a newly married couple. And also gives us a rare glimpse into the 18th century print culture. Every color is brilliant here, vibrant and uniform. So hand coloring was popular. This one is also from the Metropolitan Museum. By the way, last year, there was a large donation of woodblock prints donated to Metropolitan Museum and the Cleveland Museum of Art. And both museums had received over 100 prints, and they had special exhibitions about Chinese woodblock prints. So it would have been a wonderful thing to see, but it also tells us it's getting more popular. Next. Now we'll move on to the color prints. So hand coloring is wonderful, but it takes a lot of time. So Chinese people try to do color prints. And this one is an example. You can see very simple. They're only red and black. Black is the basic color. So they will have to make another woodblock for red colors. What I'm showing are two different pages. So they were two different woodblock. Each had two colors. And in the art, you can see the red kind of vaguely, it bleeds into the black a little bit. But on the left side, it's very clear. The red punctuation was pretty conspicuous. In the old Chinese writing, there was no punctuation. So the printer would add comma and period that would help people to read. And that requires two woodblocks to print different colors. This one is a history of flowers from 1600. And the right is the illustration. It actually talks about this knotweed plant. The text explains that it grows near water, it's red bloom in the summer and faded in the autumn. And the stalk is hollow like a bamboo stalk. So it's got good description, good illustration for people to identify all different plants. Next. This is a stationary design, and it's color print. On the left is actually a catalog for stationary design. I guess if you translate directly, it's a catalog of letter paper designs from 1627. And you can see there's multiple colors. And in addition to black, you see orange, blue, and red. There are several colors, but they're only on the line, so it's very simple. On the right-hand side is a stationery with design, and somebody actually wrote a note to his friend. And the writing was by a renowned poet and literary critic, Wang Shizhen. He talked about, he was comparing three different people's calligraphy after copying from someone, and they were all wonderful, beautiful. He's communicating with his friend. And the actual design from the color print is the left side with a small plant hanging from a cliff with birds hovering around. So the print is elegant but not conspicuous, so it doesn't overpower the actual writing. So this kind of stationery was popular during this time. So people were collecting them for its art and for its writing. Next. Now we're going to talk about the boom in printmaking. what we have seen so far, the color print was not very impressive. But during the Ming Dynasty, some beautiful color prints started. The technology really improved. And why? Because during the Ming Dynasty, the stability of the commerce and promoting people to be rich and educated. And also during this time, civil exams could enable a peasant to become a high government official and improve his social status. So reading and studying were extremely useful and popular. And also at this time, paper became cheaper. So it made publishing very profitable. Look at the map on the left, the circle pointing out the center of publishing. It's the Yangtze River Delta region, or Jiangnan. So it's near Yangtze River, near the ocean, where Nanjing, the southern capital, was. During this time, Beijing was the political capital, but Nanjing was more of a commercial capital. And the nearby cities, Hangzhou, Suzhou, were all very, prosperous. And another thing is, Nanjing has good transportation available because you can take the Yangtze River to the west, you can go to the north through the Grand Canal, and also has reach to the ocean to export. And that really helped this region to publish things, to do business, and then exchange with outsiders. And printing is about business. So let's see how this business center improve themselves by printing next. So we will talk about polychrome multi-block prints. And that really made the printing a lot more advanced. You can see this example, the grapes, the color transition from light to dark, it looks like watercolor. And that's the big improvement in printing, multiple color and multiple techniques. Also, I want to talk a lot about printing in Nanjing because we just said that was the center of printing. So many books I talked about here all came from Nanjing and spread nationwide, and also had a great impact on the arts in Japan and Korea. Next. So this is a multi-block method I will be talking about. And the main book I will talk about is this 10 Bamboo Studio Manual of Calligraphy and Painting. It was created in 1619 to 1627. So the first published edition was 1627. And right now, Huntington Library has a copy, and they credited it probably during the period of 1633 to 1703, because many versions were printed this time. So this 10 Bamboo Manual is one of the earliest and finest examples of color printing from China. So this book served as both a luxury object for beauty and guidebook for painters. The handbook was originally commissioned by Hu Zhengyan, the owner of the 10 Bamboo Villa. That's why the name of the book is 10 Bamboo. He was an amateur calligrapher, painter, and seal cover. After retiring from the government work, he set up a print shop in his villa in Nanjing. He gathered scholar artists in the area. They created the book based on the cultural environment at the time. They focused on prints of delicate cut, refined lines, and harmonious blended colors. Here's an example from the Huntington collection. And in fact, there was a special exhibition in the Huntington Library in 2016. And they tried to create this from the blocks they received. And you can see the colors, the blending of different colors. It's really beautiful. And the method they used is called the multi-block method. So they use multiple blocks. Next, we'll talk about the blocks before we look at more. So on the right-hand side, you see there are actually different wood blocks. And not a single one is the full size of the page. And that's why they actually, it's like a puzzle. They have to assemble multiple small blocks to create the print. And there are different colors for different layers of printing. It's complicated, but it gave them the opportunity to make various colors and create this watercolor effect. So I guess I purposely put a few lines, and they're similar size of the blocks. You see the blue, pink, green, they all go to this same area. So it will be different steps to make these colors in order to blend these colors. Sometimes they even wipe part of the color to create this gradation of the color, or print multiple times to get a color effect. And this turquoise color, I made a circle pointing to the left. It's actually the seal, the signature and the seal. And it's very small. And later you will see they were more liberal about where they put the seal. It has probably one seal for one artist who had made several arts, and they use the same seal for different pages. So it's interesting to see that. This method is called 豆板 in Chinese, which means multiple blocks assembled together. So to create this work, Hu Zhengyan worked with hundreds of artists and artisans, including painters, calligraphers, woodblock carvers, and printers. So it was complicated work. And in fact, they were printed many, many different editions in future years. And I will show you later. But I want to mention the Huntington Library copy has colophons written by famous artists praising the book. And this was a very popular book, and that's why there are so many versions. Next. I want to show you 3 different versions of books. The first one is the one on the left, a square cover, has a title, 10 Bamboo Painting Manual. This is the Huntington Library version. And the print, you see that when you open the book, right side is the color art, the left side is the poetry, and then the signature and seal, and also has almost like a page number, art number. It's very sophisticated. There were go back to the page. Okay, and there were 16 volumes and 8 subjects, so it's very sophisticated. And then when you look at the middle one, it's the same book, but the book cover is a different size. What happened was, in this later edition, they printed the art on 2 pages. In fact, they printed on 1 page and folded in the middle, and then it was stitched to bind into a book. So you only have a smaller size book, but the art is the same size. They use the same wood blocks, but they probably eliminated a lot of poetry. That's why the Metropolitan Museum version only has 10 volumes instead of 16 volumes in the Huntington Library. And this is the same style in Cleveland Museum of Art, San Diego Museum of Art. But then there's another version, the very, very right one. It's much reduced. Somebody commissioned the artist to copy the art, but made it much smaller so they could fit on a smaller page. And it ended up with a book of 4 volumes in this one case. And this is the Cambridge University Library version. I call it resized, the 10 Bamboo Manual. And it was printed in 1850 through a Tibetan edition. And San Diego Chinese Historical Museum has a copy printed later in 1935. And so we have 4 volumes, no poems. So you can see how popular the thing is. Throughout the centuries, different versions were developed. Another reason was because some of the original wood blocks were burned by rebels. So Hu Zhengyuan's nephew recreated the missing wood blocks, and then they reprinted. And there was clearly not much configuration control. I want to show you, I think it's fun to look at these different versions next. Okay, let's look a little more about the Huntington Library version. Notice the poetry on the left and the art on the right, beautiful colors. And one thing I want to point out is we talk about colophons, people write to praise this book. This book was actually in Japan for many, many years. So there are 5 colophons by renowned Japanese artists, attest to the great distinction this manual held for the Japanese elite owner. Especially on page 37, somebody wrote, Japanese woodblock prints were black and white until the mid-18th century. And this book was from the early 17th century. So they were very impressed. And this copy may well have been one of the earliest color books went to Japan, and that influenced their woodblock print, or ukiyo-e. Next. I want to show you the different subjects. This is from the Huntington Library website. We talk about there are 8 subjects. The first subject is writing about calligraphy, poem, and composition. So there's a lot of instruction in the first volume. It's all writing. And then there are 7 subjects, as I show here. Flowers, fruits, birds. I don't know what happened. They jumped. The text jumped. And birds, and then bamboos, trees, and orchids, and then trees. The text jumped. Anyway, it gives you an idea, these different subjects. And each one has multiple art that students could follow. And they're all beautiful with beautiful colors. Next. As I said, this is an instruction for our students. So in the beginning of the bamboo instruction, it tells you how you group leaves. So actually, if you go from the right, starting from the right, it has the different versions of leaf combination. So you can compose them to your own bamboo art. So it has 3 leaves on the right, and then there are I guess the separate leaves, actually it's the one on the top is separate leaves. Lower right is 3 leaves. In the center is broken leaves. If you look closely, the leaves are not perfect. They're jagged on the edges. And then on the left, upper left is multiple layers, and I guess top is double layers and bottom is multiple layers. So you can make this to compose your own bamboo branch. Next. This one is called flying. No, this is bamboo by a river. There are 2 versions from different places. One is the British Museum, but what I got is a copy from a printed book. And then the San Diego Museum of Art. You can see they look very, very similar. But when you look closely, that seal, remember I talked about the seal? It's the same seal, but they're not positioned the same way. So you know they were printed at different time. It wasn't from the same edition. So there's a little writing about this this one. So it says, it was from the Huntington Library translation for the poem. So I will read wait a minute, I guess I'm getting ahead of myself. This is just the, this is the bamboo by the river. Next is the flying white bamboo. Next, yeah, this is the flying white bamboo. And there's, I put 3 versions there. They're very similar. But signature and the seals are on different places. The one in the middle has the signature and the 2 characters talking about flying white on the left, but the other 2 have signature and seal on the right. And then look at the one on the right. It's got more green. I guess left and right both have a little more green, but the one on the right has 2 more branches on the upper right. So this, I think the Huntington Library one was the earliest one, and the other versions had some variation. It's just kind of fun to look at it. This is the one that has a poem that I copied from the Huntington website. Just see how elegant these poems are. This is one example. Slouching of both vibrant green and darker hue, its delicate leaves capture the reflections of the Xiang River. Uneven in length as if dusted with powder, dimly seen or in clear daylight, always as if sprinkled with frost. So can you imagine every page had a poem that is beautiful and elegant? And that's why people were collecting them, not just for the beauty of the art and beauty for the poetry. That's why this book was so popular. But later, I think it was mainly for art students, and they just want to see the art itself. Next. Here's another one with two versions. The left is Huntington Library, the right is San Diego Museum of Art. The color seems to be faded on the right, but it does have more blue. So for some reason, the blue came out. But the signature and seal, signatures are the same, but the seal are different. One is more rectangular on the left. The one on the right is square seal. But it's the same artist. So like I said, the configuration control was hard for them for many years. And this is a lingzhi mushroom. Lingzhi mushroom is a popular symbol of longevity. So many artists would paint this, and we see them in many places. So even though this one looks faded from the San Diego Museum of Art, but they have other pages that are much better. Next. See, the one on the left is from the Huntington Library. It seems like less color here. On the right-hand side, San Diego Museum of Art, we see more yellow and green. So every page is different. The quality of each page is different in each library or each museum, depends on their collection. I just thought it was very interesting. And again, the one from San Diego Museum of Art, you see a line in the middle because this book is really half the size of the paper. But the Huntington Library is a full page. Next. This one, I wanted to show you two more from San Diego Museum of Art, just because from the website, these are beautiful colors. You can see the variation of color, the shading in the rock, even the green color, they're shading differently. On the right, the foliage is blue, but the bird, look at the beautiful color and the line for the bird. So it's beautiful. It's San Diego Museum of Art edition, and they're gorgeous. But what I noticed is there's no signature, only seal. There are no artist name or title of the art. So they seem to be different in different subjects. Next. So now I wanted to show some copies from or prints from Metropolitan Museum. Their photo seems to be a little lighter, but you can still appreciate the color, just delicate color. What's interesting here is on the bottom, the two art are identical. So clearly they use the same black and white, and even the signature, the seal, all the same. But the one on the right is green. The one on the left is blue. It's from the same book. So it's interesting that they maybe suggested different color schemes in the book. Okay, next. I think we're done with the 10 bamboo. I love the 10 bamboo books, but one more. We got one more. This is the small version. This is the one from our historical museum. And notice the page is this long, narrow book, but the art can fit in each page. As I mentioned, it's a reduced size. They actually commission new artists to draw these and then to paint and then carve. So it's a lot of effort to recreate this book in order to publish in books so people could copy. And the writing, the Chinese characters writing actually says it's a copy or imitation from 10 bamboo. to give credit to the Ten Bamboo original book. And I thought it was interesting. The upper right is a different thing. It's not the original 7 subjects. This is a landscape, and they're in fine lines and for detailed composition. And the upper middle actually has a figure, not a garden anymore. So maybe it added a few more things in addition to the Ten Bamboo. Next. Now we're into a new book. This is a Mustard Seed Garden Manual Painting. This book came out about 50 years after the Ten Bamboo Manual. It focused more on the creation, more subjects, and the composition. It had more examples of how you do the composition. So this is actually more popular among the students. The Ten Bamboo was more of a collector's item, but this Mustard Seed Garden Manual was more practical for artists. So it was initiated by Li Yu, owner of the Mustard Seed Garden, and his friend Shen Xingyou planned and found people to create it. Eventually, it was created by 3 brothers from the same family. It seems to be the case that the carvers usually are from the same family and they will work together. They also used the multi-block technique, just like the Ten Bamboo. So they had gorgeous colors. And it's printed in 2 pages. When you open up, there are 2 pages, but they were actually treated as 2 pages. You can see the middle has a seam on the paper, and they assembled as one art. Because narrower book was easier to assemble and easier to keep. And this book, the first one was published in 1679, and then a revised and expanded version was published in 19th century. And it was so popular that, again, you can find it in Amazon. Actually, on the upper right is a modern copy from Amazon. That's where I bought mine from. So it's very interesting. So this menu systematically breaks down the techniques for landscape painting, figures, birds, and plants, and also has an extra volume all about composition. And that's why it's very popular. It also talks about the brushworks and shows some of the historical famous art, show you the step by step. That's why it's more popular for the artists. Next. We're moving on for decoration. This is a 1-page single sheet, and it was using multiple block color prints, added a little bit of a hand color touch up to make it really gorgeous, and then added embossing to make it almost like embroidery. So this is a very attractive art. The artist was Ding Liangxian, who was from who was from Suzhou, as we talked about the center of printing. He was a Catholic, born in 1685, and he was active until 1754. He made many flower and bird art with his own wood carving, so he was selling them, making a good living. But he also sold Western paintings. Because he was Catholic, he had access to foreigners, so he was able to export his art. And here the 2 main flowers are the pomegranate and the white magnolia. Because of many seeds in pomegranate, it symbolizes many descendants. And the white magnolia blooms early in the spring. It represents noble beauty. So it's always auspicious. Next. This is also by Ding Liangxian. He was very productive. These are greeting cards. What he created are auspicious symbols for greeting cards. And one thing I want to mention, he created a lot of these greeting cards. a while ago, they were considered, this was a collection by Engelbert Kaempfer, a German doctor, and later they realized it belonged to the collection of Sir Hans Sloane. Sloane was a physician and botanist who collected prints from around the world out of academic interest. His family donated about 29 Chinese woodblock prints to the British Museum, and they were put away for 200 years. That's why the colors are so brilliant. So on the left, we see three friends in the winter. They are the pine, the plum blossom, and bamboo, the bamboo. So they're the three friends. They stand up for the bitter winter, and they represent different things. Pine represents longevity, plum blossom represents morality, and bamboo represents humility because it's a hollow stalk. On the right side are the peaches. Peaches is a symbol of longevity because of ancient Chinese mythology. It's said that the Queen Mother of the West planted these fruits that would ripen every 3,000 years. So if you eat it, you will have a long life. That's why it represents longevity. And then we also see a cicada that symbolizes the cycle of life and death. That stresses the importance of reference and ancestors. Another thing I want to point out is this Mr. Ding Liangxian. He produced many, many prints exported to Japan through trade via Nagasaki. According to Dutch records, Japan imported a large number of Chinese woodblock prints from the 18th to 19th century. In the decade of the 1760s alone, as many as 60,000 pieces were imported to Japan, making Japan the country with the largest collection of Chinese woodblock prints during the Qing dynasty. I mentioned earlier, when we talk about the Huntington Library 10 Bamboo Manual, the Japanese wrote about the Japanese woodblock prints were black and white until the mid-18th century. So the timing here, the 1760s, agrees with this timing. So this, in the middle of the 18th century, that's when color prints became popular in Japan, and that eventually promoted the Japanese woodblock prints that influenced Korea and Europe. Next. Now we want to talk about the New Year picture called Nianhua. Here we see two bright red pictures of two fierce warriors. They are the door gods. So people will put them up during the New Year to protect the family. And there are stories about them. The most popular one was from the Tang Dynasty. In the 7th century, Emperor Tang Taizong had a series of nightmares of demons and ghosts, could not sleep well. So his two generals volunteered to guard his chamber by the doors, and that solved his problem. But later, this was not practical. The emperor just put the images of the two generals on his doors, and that worked just fine. And after that, people started doing the same thing. So people would get these generals' pictures on their doors on New Year. Next. The next popular New Year picture is the stove god or kitchen god. On the top is sort of like a calendar talking about the 24 solar terms corresponding to lunar calendars. This is the year 1873. It helps the farmers to know when to do certain things. The stove god and his wife are in the middle of the picture, and the bottom is the treasure collecting container, 聚宝盆, and there are people around appreciating them. And the custom is a few weeks before, within a month before the New Year, people would burn their door god picture to send the door god to heaven. So they hope the door god will say good things of the family and will bring back good luck for the following year. And then on the New Year day, or maybe, I think the day before New Year day, and then they will put up the new door god. So that's a fun thing to do. Next. I want to talk about the Western influence. This is about engraving versus woodblock print. This is about Bible story. The left is a very detailed engraving about a Bible story about the fisherman. And on the right-hand side, same thing, the story about the fisherman. It's a Chinese woodblock print. It's part of this translated Bible by the missionary Matteo Ricci or Lima Do, the Italian Jesuit missionary. I couldn't find the exact same art, so this is just to give you an idea. The wood carving is the same story about Simon Peter and his companions. They eventually became the first group of disciples following Jesus. But you can see the difference of the art. But next one I want to show you tells you more. It's the reverse of a woodblock print turning into engraving. Next. The left is the original art. It's the woodblock print. What happened was emperor was fascinated by the relationship between woodblock print and the engraving. So he commissioned people to take 36 wood engravings, wood carving art turned into engraving. So the one on the left is the woodblock. You see the detail of the sky, the water, and all that. And the copy on the right is an engraving. So the artist didn't do the clouds, the sun, or the water texture. So those are white, and the mountains, part of them are white. But it has so much detail in the foliage, the building, the ground. It's just a different style. The Chinese woodblock is using a different line thickness, sometimes a different spacing to give you the light and dark shadow. But the engraving are very, very fine lines, and there are just so many lines to give you the detail. So it's interesting to see the difference. Next. Now we move on to the new stage of development. So in the 19th century, Western printing methods were introduced, as we saw in the engraving there, but woodblock printing remained popular in China due to its convenience and affordability. In the early 20th century, the traditional themes continued along with the new purposes, such as wars and railway events related to foreign controls, leading to resentment. By the 1940s, Chinese woodblock prints became a tool of political propaganda for the Communist Party. Until later, it changed. But I want to show you this. The art on the left is actually a poster for an exhibition. It's a poster for a 20th century Chinese woodblock print exhibition in 2023. If you look, it looks like the working class people parading on the street. So it's more of a propaganda. And this exhibition was from the collection of the Chinese National Art Academy. So it gives you the sense in the 20th century, latter part of it, or middle part of 20th century, it was all about propaganda. But by the 1980s, after Mao Zedong died, people were free to create art. So it would change next. When we come to the 21st century, woodblock printing is no longer reproducing. The artists began redesigning, carving, and printing woodblock works all by themselves. There's no segregation between the carvers and artists, so they could do whatever they want to express themselves. So here we have three examples. The first one, the crane's hometown. shows lots of texture of the surface. It's like a regular painting, and the black and white cranes really pop. The middle one, Yellow River, to me more like a traditional woodblock print with a landscape, but it does apply the Western tradition of perspective and shading, and the colors are more of a Western art style. The one on the right, I really like this one a lot. It's a Flying Dancers or Flying Dance, Sound of the Far Off Drum. The color is gorgeous. It's more abstract, but you look closely. There are three female dancers with red collar and their arms raising up to the upper right. And if you look closer, the background lighter color are many more dancers. So we can see this is very different from the original woodblock printing, who was for producing books. This is really pure fine art. So the woodblock prints thrive as a versatile art form nowadays. Next. So here's our summary. As we mentioned, the Chinese woodblock prints first developed in the 7th century, and the first dated book was in A68, the Diamond Sutra, and then the first government paper currency was in 1023, the Dongsong dynasty, and then the watercolor-like prints published in 1627. It's the Ten Bamboo Manual that influenced the Japanese woodblock prints, then influenced the West, especially the Impressionism. So now, before, for a while, it was the tool for political propaganda in the mid-1900s, but now it's a versatile art form for people to express themselves. This is the end. I'm done. So, Bob, I guess you take it back.
First of all, I want to thank you, Lillian. We're about to hear from we're about to hear from Linda. But before we do, I would just want to say, first of all, it's just a wonderful program and the best talk I've ever heard on woodblock printing in China. But you folks over the years may have wondered what's over my shoulder. And what you're looking at are two multicolor Japanese woodblock prints from about 1800 by an artist named Toyokuni, who specialized in scenes from the Kabuki Theater and Tales of Genji. And here you're seeing an actor in different stages of acting during a Kabuki Theater presentation. And these were from my mom, and I inherited them, and I have them on the wall of my dining room as background for all my Zoom talks. So just by odd coincidence, I've never mentioned it before. So Linda, let's have you chat about woodblock printing in America.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Yes, early color printing in America was a little bit later than the Chinese by a couple hundred years, I guess. The Chinese were way ahead. And here's an image of the first color printing in America, which was done in 1789. And the red you see on the top was done with a wood block, and also the blue with the first letter of the text, which is an O, which was very ornate. Those two were done by woodblock prints, and this was printed by a New Jersey man, John Michael, who printed a newspaper, and this was an article that was printing the sermon that was given to announced the ordination of a new pastor, Reverend John Anders. So they did this in the multiple block way. They had a separate block for the red, a separate block for the blue, and then the text was done with movable type, like they would use for the newspaper. So they did it, they had to do it in three different printings, and they had to use a register to line the paper up to get everything the same, reproduce the same all the time. And if you think back, you just saw that last image of Lily's, which had all the color and looked like watercolor. This looks very, very primitive to call this multicolor printing, but that's where it stood in this country compared to China. Next. So what reminded me when I saw, especially that last image that you saw from Lily's talk, where that woodblock printing is looking very much like watercolor art, and it reminded me of John Audubon's book Birds of America. If you look at the image of the blue jay, it looks a lot like that kind of printing, but it was done very differently. And he was in the 1800s, between 1820 and 1838. Audubon took off on an exploration to document every species of bird in America. And he drew these birds from life as he was out exploring. He would kill the bird and use the bird as a model, and then draw his drawings. And he wanted to do them life size. He used large paper called double elephant folio, which was 30 inches by 40 inches. And the printing was done by an engraving procedure in which you have a metal plate like copper and etch the outlines into it. And then those lines were filled with ink, and paper put on that. What paper put on top of that would capture the lines. It's just the opposite of woodblock print, where what you want to see, the lines you want to see, are standing up and the rest is carved away. Here the ink goes into where it's carved. Next. So then they were all hand colored. They did not use color printing to make these. These were all hand colored. And if the bird was too tall for his paper, like this big flamingo you see on the right, then he would just have the bird be bending down and eating, so that he could keep it life size. He had a group of colorists that helped him with the coloring of these. And when they were finished with the original drawings, he would pack them up in groups of 5 and send them to England to be printed. They are to be engraved and then printed, mostly done by a man named Robert Havell. And those services were not available in the United States at the time. So he made about 475 drawings in all, but only 435 of them were included in the original set that was made. It took 12 years to complete that first edition. It was a very labor intensive process. So they made as I said, about 200 sets. They sold them at $1,000, which was high. Institutions bought them. Some states, Arizona, I believe the state of Arizona bought a set, and wealthy people bought a set. And the reason they were so high was that there were high tariffs for imported goods. And even though this was an American book about birds of America, because it had to be printed in England, it now had to pay an import tariff when it came back into the country. So now what happened to all those copper plates? Some of them weighed as much as 37 pounds. Next slide. when they were finished using them, they shipped them back for storage in New York City, where they stayed until 1865, after the Civil War. And then some of them were given away, sold as scrap metal. And John Audubon himself managed to save about 37 of them, which are now in museums that include the American Museum of Natural History, the Smithsonian, Princeton University, and Wesleyan University. And by the way, Princeton University is where that first color printing in America, the one about the ordination of the new pastor, that one is in Princeton University Library. So color printing really didn't take off in the United States until after the Civil War, when then they had a much wider distribution of it. Next slide. So by 1897, driven by commercial demand, such they were using multicolored things for posters, greeting cards, trading cards were popular. And one good example is seed catalogs. And you see this image, which is from a collection in the Huntington Gardens, and which shows how advanced color printing became by that time. It's no longer being done with woodblock printing. And so this image is from the collection at Huntington Gardens, and Huntington Gardens also has a full copy of Audubon's original Birds of America. So that's it. That's the end. I think we can have a really good appreciation for what the Chinese were accomplishing with the woodblock printing.
Yeah. I think this was a wonderful presentation. I want to thank both Lily and Linda, and I'm sure we all found it absolutely enthralling. And who knew that movable type was invented by the Chinese hundreds of years before Gutenberg, right? So we've got to correct our kids when they learn this in history. So very cool. Afina and Kathy, do we have any thoughts or questions from the folks watching?
Yeah, in the chat, Connie asked, was the embossing created with another wood block?
See that?
Was the embossing created with another wood block?
Must be, yes. They create the texture so you could do the embossing, yes. Other questions?
Yeah, there's another question from Peggy asking, was there a preferred wood type for the blocks? Was it easily accessible or needed to be imported?
China had the wood that they like to use. I think there's like a peach wood, and there's certain wood that is really preferred. It's hard enough, but the grain is even, so it's easy to carve. Yeah, they are preferred wood. So I think they're fruit tree, yeah, the peach tree, and I forgot, I wrote it down before. Yes.
There's a question by Peggy.
Yes. Thank you very much, Lily, for such an informative presentation. Learned a lot and see many beautiful woodblock print from China. My question is about, just actually I have a few questions, but let me just ask one about in the one slide you showed mustard seed 芥子园, and you showed two pictures, two prints. One on one side is 1679, and another you said called edition. It's a different print though. You called it edition, 1887 edition.
They were republished. See
yes, it's a published. That is exactly my question. So published means, of course, do you mean they use the same wood block? Do you mean those wood blocks were preserved by somewhere that you can, of course, if you here, you can print and publish again and again, right? So when you mention it, are those wood blocks still, some of them, preserved somewhere, or what do you mean by that? When it's 200
Some were preserved. I think in both ten bamboo and mustard seed, some were original wood, but some were I guess recarved. And
That's right.
and in this mustard seed, they actually expanded the new. When they published in 19th century, they actually added more information.
So,
but it's true.
They're recarved, right? The wood
Recarved. Some are recarved.
Because from some comparisons I see, they are not identical. So obviously they use the print. Then the newer the people, the new craftsmen or artists, and they recarve it and then print again, right?
Yes,
so
yes.
They are
I think they're
based on the same like a dictionary.
Same art. Yeah, same art.
Like
in fact, the copy we have in the Chinese museum, I was able to see some of the writings. They had they explain what that copy was. It was commissioned to recarve what they had a copy, and then they commissioned people to recarve all the blocks in order to print more. It took them 7 years to carve all the wood blocks in order to reprint. And that was the one the Chinese museum has. It's only 4 volumes, a much smaller one. So those older ones were incredible.
Thank you.
And maybe, by the way, usually they can print many thousands of pages before they damage the wood. But the problem was sometimes they were from fire or from rebels, from other reasons why they were damaged or lost.
What is the oldest woodblock still preserved in museum nowadays? Do you know?
I think it's this. I don't know, but I know Huntington Library actually has the original woodblocks. They were able to mimic the technique and make prints during this 2016 exhibition. That's why they have the blocks there. They have blocks in their collection, so they display the blocks. They were, I guess, the old blocks.
They're old blocks, but the printer really modern printing, right?
No, the book was original. They were able to. The book was 1633. So the book they had is the original.
Yes,
they also had blocks, so they were able to mimic the way the print was made to create, just for illustration. They made some new prints.
Yeah, but the book you get from Amazon is modern printing.
Oh yeah, everything. Thank you.
So, Kathy and Afina, if there are, maybe we have time for 1 or 2 other questions. And I certainly want to thank Lily and Linda. This was just a wonderful presentation. And while some of us may have known something about Chinese wood blocks, this was just a total in-depth and enjoyable session. Kathy and Afina, anything else?
Yes. Thank you to Lily and Linda as well. There's a question from Peggy in the chat asking, when was the transition from wood to copper or metal?
Copper was the European method. Chinese continue using woodblock, and occasionally they may use copper, but that's the different preference. The Western people use engraving copper, and then the Chinese continue using woodblock.
And then there's also, of course, stone lithography as well.
Yes, and now there's a lithograph, there's a different chemical etching, and so there are a lot more methods now, aqua tint and different methods. But the oldest methods was woodblock or engraving on copper plate.
Bob, may I just raise say one thing for fun, because just want to mention it. From one print, if you remember, after 2 generals that guard your door, your gate, especially during Chinese New Year time, people buy those prints now to paste on your gate as a protection, right? Do you remember that 2 prints from Tang Dynasty? 2 generals.
The door gods, door gods, they're
It's Yichigong and Qin Qun. That's generals. I will not go to the details there, but I want to mention, if you go to the Chinese Historical Museum, follow the 3rd Avenue, going to Market Street. If you walk like this, then on your left side, on the left side on the wall, there's a mural. on a huge mural, and the two generals were painted on the wall. I think you have passed by that. It's very obvious. Then
Yeah.
but one thing, there's a mistake there. Of course, the people who commissioned, the restaurant or whoever commissioned the artist when they didn't study Chinese history. The two generals, they were faced wrong direction. They were faced opposed to each other. In fact, that's a bad luck. When you print them, they should face to each other to protect you. So I just want to mention it. So next time you walk on the 3rd Avenue toward Market Street, look at those two very, very big murals on the wall.
Right. It's on the southwest corner of 3rd and Market.
No, it's on the southwest corner
Southwest
of
corner of
Market
3rd and
and the
Market.
3rd Avenue. That's
Where it
exactly
is.
right.
Yeah, it's part of a
cool.
walking tour. I think when we do walking tour, we
Yeah,
go.
we do mention when we do a walking tour, we walk by that spot.
Right.
Yeah.
Mention
All right.
that
Well,
they
at this
really
point,
should face
I
each
know,
other.
Xiaowei, I thank you very much. At this
Thank you.
point, I want to mention next month and the month after, and I want to thank everybody again. Next month, we've got Dr. Sun, and the month after, we've got How to Feed the Presidents in the White House. And I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Certainly, Hilda Yoder coming all the way from The Hague. We want to thank Dr. Littman, the former president of Children's Primary Care Medical Group, Esther Schifrin from LA, who's spoken to us about the Shanghai Jews in the past, and everyone else who's tuned in. And we'll look forward to seeing everybody next month. We'd like the principals to stay on for a brief chat. And otherwise, I want everyone else to have a wonderful rest of your weekend. And thanks again for tuning in. This is always a lot of fun.